Hello, it is Loredas, the 14th of mid-year, the year 582. Today I will be reading a collection of Gold Coast books I have come across in my journeys. So please, sit back, relax, and listen in. Starting with number 1, a Gold Coast children's bestiary. Goblins, goblins from beyond the heath, wear necklaces of children's teeth, their arrows with the poison laced, from Nixad guts ground into paste. Minotaur. The Minotaur are warriors born. They hang dead children from their horns. Don't think them cows, they never moo. The meat they most prefer is you. Nixad. The Nixad flit about like flies. Their favorite meal is children's eyes. These sugar fiends are cruel and vain. They take delight in children's pain. River Troll. Every child with half a mind knows river trolls are most unkind. Those who don't will soon endure their childish minds in troll manure. Confessions of a Vampire Devotee. I first heard about the vampire lord Zalar Doe while exploring the markets of Eldenroot. The stories both fascinated and frightened me. Here was a Khajiit who had gained power and notoriety, whose very name was whispered with fear and a healthy dose of respect. I admit it, I had been pondering the risks and benefits of life as a vampire ever since I was a child. Now, with each tale I heard, every rumor I digested, I realized the goal that was set before me. I had to find Zalado and convince her to turn me into a vampire. Why do I want to be a vampire? That's a good question. I've certainly asked myself that very same thing on more than one occasion since this obsession grabbed hold of me. I suppose it has something to do with the allure of power and the correlation between vampirism and sex that some scholars go on and on and on about. Yes, I've read every book the letter I could find pertaining to the subject. But if I can be totally honest, and since this is my private journal, I suppose I have to be, the real appeal has to do with the longevity of the species. I've read that ancients can survive hundreds, even thousands of years. As a child who saw both of his parents die much too young, this immortality has become a very attractive option to me. I'm not extremely keen on the idea of drinking blood, however, but I suppose every advantage comes with its own set of disadvantages. Such is the way of the world. I might be squeamish at first, though I expect with time and practice I could even grow to enjoy a daily feast of the crimson liquid. I wonder if it needs to come from an intelligent creature or if it has to be fresh. I guess that's what the protruding fangs are for. Before I could locate Zalado's lair or otherwise introduce myself to the vampire lord, the hunter Mel Adris appeared in town. He asked about disappearances and mysterious deaths, and he even mentioned Zalado by name while I eavesdropped on his conversation with one of the town guards. He was going to ruin my chance to meet and offer myself as an apprentice to the vampire lord. I followed the hunter around, watching how he searched for traces of Zalado's passing, and tracked her to her lair. It was empty, of course. This was much too smart to be caught. Oh, she was much too smart to be caught by the likes of Mel Adris. I spent the next few months staying as close to the vampire hunter as I could without revealing my presence. I figured that he'd have a better chance of locating Zalado than I would, and once we got close to the vampire lord, I was sure I'd be able to help figure out how to help her avoid Mel Adris and convince her to reward me with the power of the vampire. It was this dream that kept me moving, following the hunter from Gratwood to Greenshade to Malabal Tor, until we eventually made our way to the Gold Coast. Here, luck was with me. The vampire hunter was indisposed after we docked at Anvil. The rough storm our ship traveled through seems to have made the poor man ill. That gave me time to search for Zalado and get a few steps ahead of Meladris. I believe she has established her lair in Hirota Cave, the perfect location from which to stalk prey in Anvil when the hunger comes upon her. I've made my way to the cave and plan to present myself to the vampire lord forthwith. I can't wait to become one of her apprentices. Debella's Mysteries and Revelations by Lady Augustine Villian, Sibyl of the House of Debella. The skies over Wayrest are stormy and changeable, more often grey than blue, but some mornings in Second Sea the sun rises into heavens blue and clear, and a mild, warm breeze blows in from the Iliac Bay. It was on just such a morning, and the trees fragrant with blossoms, that I was welcoming several new novices to their vocation in the House of Debella. They were full of questions, as the young ones always are. "Holy Sibyl," asked a younger oyster-catcher from Oldcroft, "is love truly the answer to every question?" "It is, if the question addresses the heart," said I. "Rarely if it addresses the mind." "Holy Sibyl," asked the shy engraver from Alcaire, "is it true we must dance for the worshippers while unclad?" I smiled. "That is as your spirit shall will. end as the weather shall allow. I have one, holy Sybil, said the clever child of a Wayrest banker. If the ages sacrificed themselves, each to add something to the making of our world, what did Our Lady contribute to the world? In reply, I scooped up a double handful of fallen blossoms from the sward and rained them over his astonished brow. I am troubled, holy Sybil, said the hostler from North Point, for I know not who is my father. That is naught to be the goddess of beauty, I gently replied, for she says, no matter the seed, if the shoot is nurtured with love, will not the flower be beautiful? What if a congregant seeks me as an ardent partner, said the knight's son, scion of Evermore, but I find her without favour? Love whomever you may, I sang, but love coerced is not love at all. Holy Sybil, is it true what they say, stammered the old keeper's heir, that you lost your sight from the great flu? It is, I smiled, but what of that? For can I not dance? Holy Sybil! Holy Sybil! Peace, young novices, I cried out, for it is Freitas, the bell tolls sundown, and the congregants await in the chapel. Come now, come, bring wine, bring tambours, bring light feet and warm hearts. Our Lady calls us to worship. Field Guide to River Trolls by Frastus of Ellen here. The origin of the race of trolls is somewhat obscure, which is another way of saying we know absolutely nothing about where they come from, how they got here, or why they exist at all. The troll has certainly haunted Tamrielic folklore from time immemorial, known to nearly every culture and appearing in tales of all sorts, from children's fables to the histories of the ancients. Indeed, they are mentioned in Cosey's venerable Tamrielian tractates, which speak of ye troll of rapace, thrice-orbed enormity, that eateth ye flesh of both commons and kings. After our long history on Tamriel with them, we men and mer should really know quite a bit about trolls, should we not? Perhaps so, but we don't. The few facts at our disposal are as follows. Trolls are fierce and formidable carnivores, devouring anything they can catch down to fingernails and marrow. A troll injured by any means but fire heals with preternatural speed, a regeneration almost certainly magical in nature. Troll fat is a reagent prized by alchemists, though its virtues seem to vary depending on different recipes and rendering techniques. Despite their physical prowess, trolls are reclusive creatures, and their lairs are usually found well off the beaten track. We can say little else with certainty, save that trolls live in a range of habitats and seem to exist in variations appropriate to their environment of origin. The most common and therefore best known types of trolls include the forest trolls of central Tamriel and the frost trolls of the far north. But history and legend tell us of other types of trolls, more obscure perhaps, but no less fascinating. Some, like the lava trolls of Vardenfell, are almost certainly extinct, if indeed they ever existed outside the fevered imaginations of Dark Elf Corner Club raconteurs. But today we shall speak of a rare breed of troll of rapace that you can definitely still encounter, and not in the far-off regions like Middle Argonia or Topol Island. They live in Cyrodiil itself, if one knows where to look for them. I'm speaking of the elusive river troll. You won't find it listed on the Imperial Register of Beasts and Lower Beings, but it's real nonetheless, as I can readily attest. I myself have personally seen in the marketplace of Such the carcass of a river troll that was brought in by an intrepid hunter who traps the tributaries of the Braina. She told me they lay out of sight in riverside caves and burrows, subsisting on mud crabs, large fish, and crocodiles, as well as upon unwary people, when they can get them. This might be why they're so rarely reported, as few survive such an encounter. The appearance of the corpse, fire-scarred though it was, bore out the brave hunter's account. Unlike the familiar forest variety, this river troll's hide was clad in shiny, water-shedding scales, silver blue in color and as durable as they were flexible. The long, scaly hands had webbing between the clawed fingers, and the fangs were the sharp, spiky teeth of fish-eaters. The hunter said they can hold their breath for long periods, lurking unseen in the shallows, until they erupt from ambush to overwhelm their prey. Since that encounter, I've questioned others who ranged the wild places of Cyrodiil, and learned that the experience of the hunter of Such was not unique. River trolls, though rarely seen, can be found lurking in the watersheds of the Braina, Strid, and central Niven river systems, and doubtless account for a fair percentage of the livestock and people who go missing in those regions. Knowing what I do now has certainly persuaded me to confine my nature walks to paths on the drier uplands, lest I end my scholarly career as fodder for trollkins in some muddy riverside burrow. Guide to Taming Direwolves by Shelga Grabur, Beastmaster of Kavach. Do you laugh when you see direwolves? Do you think they are big, dumb cousins of normal wolves? Then you are stupid. Direwolves are cunning and deadly. To them, your laughter says, I am the next thing to fill your belly. Shelga laughed at direwolves once. Now Shelga has one ear. Shelga is no longer stupid. Now Shelga is Beastmaster of Kavach, the city with the direwolf banner. This is why Shelga spends so much time taming direwolves. You may think it impossible to tame direwolves. This is true. Predators cannot be tamed. Not really. But if Shelga called it a guide to making direwolves eat your enemies and not you, none would purchase. Or purchase for the wrong reasons. First thing, a direwolf looks like a wolf. It moves like a wolf, it smells like a wolf, but it is not. It is a dire wolf. Sounds easy, but easy to forget. A wolf needs a pack. A wolf with no pack is vicious. It is afraid to be alone. With effort, you can tame a wolf. Give it food if it is hungry. Make it think it is part of your pack. A dire wolf needs no pack. This is because a dire wolf is one whole wolf pack. It is vicious only if it wants to be. It is not afraid to be alone because it is a dire wolf. You cannot tame a dire wolf like a wolf. If it is ever hungry, you are food. It needs no pack but itself. You must show it you are a pack as well. Show how your pack and its pack should travel together for more food. A dire wolf understands this because it eats as much as one whole wolf pack. Second thing, a direwolf has a long memory. It is like a clan mother with grudges from 40 years ago. Don't give it reason to hate you. Shelga's sister Gralga once slapped a direwolf for eating off her plate. This is how Gralga lost her thumb and learned manners at the same time. Gralga doesn't visit Kvatch anymore. If a direwolf comes to hate you, do not back down. Do not cower. Show it you know it's hate. Show it you don't fear its hate. This shows respect. And then give it much food to smother the hate. Shelga thinks this is why Kvatch puts the direwolf on its flag. Kvatch does not forget. Kvatch respects those who show it respect, and Kvatch will smother its hate if you throw its people many banquets. Sometimes a direwolf still hates you, then you must kill the direwolf. Do not do so in the sight of a direwolf's mate, or it will hate you too. Just like people. Third thing, scratch the belly. Scratch behind the ear, but not in the ear. Scratch where the tail meets the back. Top part of the tail only. Scratch below the chin. Do not scratch the paws. Direwolf paws are sensitive, like high elves. Also, they have sharp claws. When a direwolf thinks you want to take its paws away, it will come to hate you. Last thing, a direwolf is clever, but it doesn't understand magic. So use magic. Scrolls are cheaper than a false hand. Don't try to tame a direwolf like in the stories. Don't be stupid. Shelga's sister, Bolga, says this is cheating, that a direwolf made tame by magic is not a direwolf. Shelga calls Bolga many names. Bolga does not back down, earning Shelga's respect. Then Bolga sends Shelga boiled thunderbug eggs. Shelga says if even Bolga can learn, so can you. Pirate Queen of the Gold Coast by Madara Sarvidicus, historian, University of Gwillem. The Gold Coast has undergone some radical changes since Farron Aquilarios led his rebellion against the Longhouse Emperor Leovic in Second Era 576. First, the region's inhabitants banded together to build Varen's Wall, as discussed in greater detail in my treatise of the same name. The protective boundary basically separated the Gold Coast from the Colovian Highlands and served to keep the area safe from Imperial retaliation and other external threats. Second, the region took advantage of the rebellion to declare its independence from Cyrodiil. These two events established the Gold Coast as an isolated haven from the troubles that plagued the rest of the continent, but not without setting up challenges of a different sort. In Second Era 577, just as the last stones were being placed to complete Varen's Wall and the Imperial Navy was away dealing with the rebellion taking place to the north and the east, a fleet of merchant warships and pirate vessels sailed into Anvil Harbor. A white flag adorned with a red saber flew over each ship, led by Fortunata Updugal, a shipping magnate in the Gold Coast Trading Company. The fleet took control of the docks and disembarked a company of sailors and pirate warriors that quickly overpowered the remaining troops loyal to the Imperial Prefect. In less than a day, Fortunata had taken control of Anvil, named herself provincial governor, and declared that the Gold Coast was now a free and independent state, from the Abyssian Sea to Varen's Wall. The self-proclaimed provincial governor, better known as the Pirate Queen to friends and enemies alike, used her connections as a high-ranking merchant lord of the Gold Coast Trading Company to build her base of power. She promised the pirates a safe haven and a share of the wealth pouring through the region in exchange for their backing and support. The pirates, along with the merchant marines that had always been more loyal to Fortunata than to the company that employed them, gave the Pirate Queen the weapons she needed to take and maintain control of Anvil and the surrounding countryside. In many ways, the truth is almost more unbelievable than the risque and outlandish adventure tales now appearing as broadsheets on the streets of Anvil. These bawdy stories follow the exploits of the barely fictitious pirate empress Thusa Uplugard, and they have become quite popular. The actual Pirate Queen tolerates the tales, if not actively encourages their publication on a regular basis. Now the blood-red sabers on fields of white fly above Castle Anvil and the Anvil Lighthouse, and the Pirate Queen has turned Anvil into a quote-unquote free city. No military vessels from any alliance are allowed to approach the Anvil docks. Instead, merchant ships from across Tamriel fill the wharfs, happy to buy and sell cargo at bargain prices. Even the once proud and influential Gold Coast Trading Company has acquiesced to the Pirate Queen's demands, deciding that profit is more important than arguing over respectability and who's in charge. In effect, the company does what the Pirate Queen tells it to. It doesn't take a profit to predict that the Pirate Queen has her sights set on Anvil's neighbor to the northeast, Kavach. She said as much in her much publicized Declaration of Independence. With more and more pirates and buccaneers rallying to her flag every day, and with gold flowing from frightened nobles as protection money disguised as taxes, it's clear to see that Fortunata will soon have the resources to deal with Count Carolus and even Primate Artorius. It's just a matter of time, and the Pirate Queen has demonstrated over and over and over again that she can be very patient when it comes to letting her plans develop. By all accounts, Fortunata rules Anvil with an iron fist. The Red Sails pirates serve as her private army, raiding, rampaging, and performing the duties of enforcers whenever and wherever she directs them. She may be a cruel and merciless dictator, but she keeps the region under control and prevents anarchy from running rampant. Can we really expect more than that from our rulers? Rise of the Red Sails. Pirates pose a common problem to most merchants who ply their trade by the sea, but if you asked anyone other than a sailor to name even one crew responsible for their nautical woes, I'd wager you'd find them woefully at a loss. Few of these outlaws ever achieved the heights of infamy needed to reach the ears of inland folk. The Red Sails and their pirate queen Fortunata Abdugal stand as the notable exception to this rule. Their notoriety stretches all along the Abyssinian coast to the point of being a household name and catch-all bugaboo among residents of waterside towns. This widespread reputation is a relatively recent development. Not all that long ago, the Red Sails were much more like their contemporaries, independent and unremarkable. Originally a band of raiders plundering a meager living along the Strid River, it was the arrival of Fortunata Abdugal that marked the beginning of a new era for the humble raiders who would soon be known as the Red Sails. Using her position in the Gold Coast Trading Company to lure the raiders to her side, she soon began building her floating armada. Under Fortunata's ambitious, some would say fearless, leadership, the raiders made their first voyage out to the Abyssinian Sea, and what can only be described as a suicidal assault, her smaller complement of raiders scaled a larger pirate vessel. Its captain considered the smaller riverboat beneath his notice and made the mistake of ignoring its approach. With cunning and brutality, Fortunata and her crew seized the captain and forced his surrender. Offering to accept the oath of any of the enemy crew who would serve her as captain, she ordered the former captain and his officers strung up on the rigging and slaughtered the lot of them. With the blood of her rivals still seeping into the cloth, Fortunata raised the sails that would be her crew's calling card for years to come. Using her connections as a merchant lord and the growing power of her Red Sails pirates, Fortunata turned a band of lawless miscreants into a feudal hierarchy of lords and vassals in the form of ship captains and their crews. After a number of successful boarding actions that resulted in the capture of pirate and merchant vessels alike, more and more captains began to voluntarily flock to her banner. The fearsome reputation of the Pirate Queen and her red sails spread like wildfire from port to port, as the harrowing tales of their attacks became the main topic of discussion in smoky taverns and crowded inns. When the time was right, Fortunata and her armada sailed into Anvil Harbour and grabbed control of the city. Now Provincial Governor Fortunata and her Red Sail enforcers claim the entire Gold Coast as their personal domain. It's estimated that the Red Sails have more than 2 dozen vessels under the blood-red sabres on a white banner. A navy in its own right, the Pirate Queen could lay claim to any port she desired, and without the Imperial Navy to oppose her, it's just a matter of time before she sets her sights beyond the Gold Coast. Anyone who thinks the Red Sails have reached the pinnacle of their ambition is simply living in denial. Brace yourself, Abyssians. A storm is coming. The Lost Fort Valeria. Legend has it that in the early days of Cyrodiil, in the wake of the Belesian doctrines, there were 3 lords that formed a regency council over the kingdom of Kavach. The name of that king and the 2 of the lords are lost to history. Lord Valeria's name, however, is whispered in the night as a cautionary tale of how far one would go to protect those they love. As a young man, Lord Valeria, secretly and to the shame of his family, fell in love with an elven scholar, wise in the ways of dark magic and necromancy. The Nenalata Aelids swore fealty to the Empire, but their people were still an unwelcome sight in polite society. Together they pored over lost secrets, hoping to find a way to be together always. They married in secret and enjoyed a few short years of happiness, which ended with an imperial decree. To hide his wife from the purge, Lord Falaria expanded his fortress into the underground tunnels beneath the structure. They enlarged the space with magic and the sweat of hired workers, and the help of a tribe of minotaurs. It was to be a grand underground complex to match those of his wife's alien ancestors, and equally as brutal. As each wing was completed, they secretly had the workers put to death. Some were buried, some had the life drawn out of them to extend the lives of Lord Falaria and his wife. Of these, some were raised as undead guardians. After all, Lord Falaria could not allow rumours and secrets to get out, and dead guardians spread no tales. As the complex grew, so did Lord Falaria's family. He swore to do anything to protect his children, these elven children, from death or banishment at the hands of the Empire. It was during the birth of their third child that Lady Falaria died. In mourning, his lordship erected a great brass tomb in the tunnels, sealing his love away and promising to do anything to protect her children from the religious zealots of the Empire. At this time, Lord Falaria delved deeper into the study of dark arts, formulating wicked magic fueled by darkness from some far realm that consumed all things good and light. He learned to channel the power and found it all but limitless. Lord Falaria edged closer and closer to madness after the death of his elven wife, though you could never explain his troubles to his peers in the outside world. To keep his elven family a secret, he continued to use disposable labor to expand their realm and give them new comforts. The children grew into adults, rarely seeing sunlight. Well into adulthood, his youngest son could not take his confinement any longer. He managed to escape and did so easily and often. Inevitably, as these things happened, the son fell in love with the merchant's daughter. Soon she was with child. The girl's family, horrified at the child's elven traits, forced the young woman to confess to her lover as Lord Falaria's son. Horrified at being discovered, Lord Falaria took his grandson and hid him with the rest of the family. The Empire was at his gate within days, with charges ranging from treason to giving aid to the enemy. For these crimes against the Empire, he had no defense, but he had prepared a response for this day. In his madness, Lord Falaria performed a dark ritual. If he could not be with his family, he would rather destroy everything he created and the Imperial army along with it. The night came, the ritual concluded. It would take only one final gesture to consume the entire castle in eternal darkness. At the final moment, a hand fell upon his shoulder. His son was behind him, standing with the rest of his family. It was too late. The very shadows crawled like smoke from the ground, dissolving objects, walls, men, and myrrh. Some formed man-like shapes and attacked the besieging army from within. Others opened up like rifts, and the world fell inside them. When it was over, only Lord Falaria remained amid the freshly made ruins. As the legends say, he buried his children and grandchild on the surface where he never allowed them to go. Then he retreated into the hole in the ground, sealing it behind him. For most great men, the walls and monuments survive far longer than their name. For Lord Falaria, the location of his fort is lost to time, but his name remains. The Minotaur Song. O Minotaur, beast of rage and ignorable glaring. O Minotaur, none can deny your noble bearing. Around imperial ruins you gather, eternal guardians with hooves and horn. What memories lead you to path there? Is it Belhazar, or the empire that you mourn? O Minotaur, are you monster, mer, or man? O Minotaur, tell us how you fit into the divine's plan. The Primate, Finding Faith, by Madara Salviticus, historian, University of Gwillem. The Temple of the Divines was the last place Artorius Ancrus ever expected to wind up, but as the year Second Era 542 was drawing to a close, that's exactly where the young Imperial found himself. He was serving penance for crimes committed while working for the crime boss Vodinius in the Imperial City. Thanks to his father's wealth and influence, Artorius avoided a jail cell. As for serving in the temple, he was sure that was his dear father's idea. As the fourth son, Artorius had been promised to serve the Divines, and despite the young man's best efforts to avoid that fate, it seemed he was destined for a religious life. "I'll serve my year and a day," Artorius told the priest, who was his jailer, and would become his mentor, Elavius Alfino. "But after that, I am out of here." The old priest just bowed and began to introduce his charge to religious life. Artorius' life at the temple became a daily mix of opposing states of activity, from frenzied labor to stillness bordering on inertia. Given an endless array of chores that included cleaning, food preparation, and helping to care for the shrines of the divines filled each day, punctuated by periods of study, meditation, and prayer, Artorius was soon too busy to maintain his anger at his father. And once his anger subsided, he actually began to hear the words of the priests and learn the tenets of the divines. For someone who wanted nothing to do with religion, Artorius quickly became fascinated with the tales and tenets of the divines. From Arche to Dibella, Stendar to Julianos, he visited every shrine in turn and questioned the priests endlessly about their holy sphere and rituals. Of all the divines, however, the one that seemed to attain a special place in Artorius' imagination was Akatosh, the dragon god of time. Perhaps it was Akatosh's place at the head of the pantheon that first attracted Artorius, or maybe the qualities associated with him, or the tales related to his role as the god defender of the empire. Whatever the impetus, the young noble appeared to have found his faith. When Jonas Curvatine, primate of Akatosh, arrived for his annual visit from Kavach, he took an immediate liking to the young Artorius. After leading the temple in worship, the primate invited Artorius to a private meeting. Neither Jonas nor Artorius ever revealed the details of the meeting, but shortly after that audience, Artorius pledged himself to the divines. When his probation was over, he took over the vows of the priesthood and devoted himself to serving Akatosh. The Silver Werewolf, a story by Hildegard. One day, while hunting for rabbits on the slopes of Mount Trollhätte, the Silver Werewolf flicked her ears at the sound of mournful sobbing on the wind. Never one to ignore suffering, the Silver Werewolf threw her line of rabbits across her shoulder and lumbered toward the sound. Eventually, she found a massive, bearded giant all alone at a snuffed-out campfire, roaring sadness at the sky. "Why do you cry?" the Silver Werewolf snarled, and the giant understood thanks to the medallion of Gillibeg, the quick fox, that she wore around her neck. "My mate gone, my child gone, vanished as I slept. There are many tiny tracks. I fear goblins have taken them." He was not wrong. The Silver Werewolf's keen nose detected the stench of at least a dozen goblins, as well as the lingering scent of paralytic poison. The giant's family was not dead, but they soon would be, slaughtered to feed the hungry goblin tribe. No one deserved that cruel fate. The Silver Werewolf straightened and growled deep a promise. "The goblins will not keep them. Bring them home, and you may ask anything of me." "I will ask you to smile," was her only reply. Nose to the ground, the Silver Werewolf tracked the goblin stench down Mount Trollhätte across the smoke-frost peaks to a massive goblin encampment on the fringes of Lost Prospect. It held far more goblins than she had ever seen in one place, which was why they had been brave enough to kidnap giants for food. A small tribe would have never dared anger the vengeful giants. Even for the Silver Werewolf, who could tear apart a dozen goblins without ruffling her fur, a camp of hundreds was too dangerous. She would have to be clever. Scenting a nearby corpse, an idea dawned on her. She shifted into her Nord form and cloaked herself in the dead woman's rags. Thus clothed and looking entirely harmless, she wandered into the goblins' camp like a helpless Nord lost in the snow. The goblins came for her at once, but all they saw was an unarmed Nord woman dressed in rags. A fine prize! Rather than attacking, they eagerly trussed up the Silver Werewolf and took her to their food pens, where they kept all those caught until it came time to cook them for supper. Once there, they threw the Silver Werewolf into a makeshift wooden cage and left her to freeze to death in the cold. As she'd hoped, the overconfident goblins had played right into her hands. Even muffled by her gnawed form, the Silver Werewolf's nose detected the smell of giants nearby. Now all she had to do was wait until dark and make her escape with the giant's family and any others who wished freedom. Dark fell and the goblins grew sleepy, leaving only their trained Durzogs to prowl the edges of the food paddocks. It was a bad night for hunting, but a good night for sneaking as clouds crept in to obscure the moon. The Silver Werewolf shifted forms in the dark and quietly snapped the bars of her wooden cage. While those bars would cage a Nord, they were no match for her bestial strength. Silent as a shadow, the Silver Werewolf prowled the food paddocks until her keen nose detected one with giants inside. Just as quietly she opened it, crept inside, and slashed the bonds holding down the giantess and her little one. "Your loved one waits where you left him," she whispered in a low growl. "Thank you, Moon-Kissed. We will see him again, or die trying." On her way out, the Silver Werewolf spotted another paddock filled with Nords moaning with piteous cries. Despite her distaste for those wolf killers, animals who killed for sport and not for food, she knew they could be useful in their own way. "Run now!" she snarled to the giantess as she tore into the Nord paddock, snarling and drooling as she menaced them with her claws. Screaming Nords burst from their cage in all directions, alerting Durzog and Goblin alike. In the commotion, the Silver Werewolf found the giantess and led her towards the camp's edge. Goblins challenged them, but were cut down by the Silver Werewolf's claws and teeth, or smashed by the dozens at the hands of the vengeful giantess. Soon only the Durzogs pursued them, but one deafening howl from the Silver Werewolf sent the cowed dogs skittering back to their masters. A number of Nords had escaped as well, the Silver Werewolf saw, and she had no doubt they would return in force to smash the goblins soon. That is what Nords did, and this time only the silver werewolf wished them luck. Under cover of darkness, the silver werewolf led the giantess back up Mount Trollhättan, and there at the campfire the family was reunited. The lonely giant clutched his child and mate as he babbled his thanks in his guttural tongue. How can I repay you? Thinking of her own pups, she repeated, I will ask you to smile, so I can see how you treasure them above all else. And he did. The Wolf and the Pirate Queen by Madara Salviticus, historian, University of Gwilym. Thanks to the actions of Carolus Aquilarius, the Wolf of Kavach, Anvil's defences were practically non-existent when Captain Fortunata, the Pirate Queen, sailed into port. After numerous attempts by the Imperial soldiers stationed at the port city to invade Kavach, the barracks in Anvil were practically empty due to defeat after defeat at the Wolf's hands. Captain Fortunata's loyal pirates and buccaneers quickly took control of the city, and she claimed the title provincial governor for herself. That might have been the end of things as far as Count Carolus was concerned, except for what the Pirate Queen decided to do next. She declared that the Gold Coast was now an independent state, free and separate from Cyrodiil and the Empire. When she requested that Kavach join Anvil as part of the new order, the Count refused, preferring to continue to owe fealty to Emperor Verum. Not feeling totally confident at the time, Fortunata didn't press the demand, but she wouldn't forget the Count's lack of support. When the Soul Burst occurred and Verum disappeared, she took advantage of Kavach's sudden isolation to make her demands more forceful. Anvil began pressing Kavach to join the Gold Coast, both diplomatically and by increasingly underhanded means. Marauders and bandit gangs began to appear along the Gold Road around Kavach, disrupting trade and harassing travelers. Kavach's elite guards, the warders, were dispatched to deal with the bandits, but each time the bandits were able to escape to the Strid River. They returned in greater numbers, amplifying their attacks and raiding outlying farms and sending frightened refugees into the city for protection. Despite these acts of aggression, Carolus remained staunch and refused to negotiate with the Pirate Queen. Infuriated, Fortunata announced that Kavach would be formally annexed into the Gold Coast. She sent the Anvil Guard to take command of the city. The Count of Kavach responded by putting the warders upon the walls and sending the cohort out to confront the invaders. The opposing forces met on the Gold Road near the Gottshore Inn. The more disciplined and highly trained cohort scattered the motley guards from Anvil, but the situation wasn't as it appeared. It was a trap. An army of pirates exploded out of hiding and surrounded the cohort. While ragged and undisciplined, the pirates outnumbered the legionnaires 6-1. The cohort was wiped out in what has come to be known as the Gottshore Massacre. Carolus Aquilarius had no choice. Without the support of the cohort, he had no option other than to swear fealty to the Gold Coast. Now caught between the Pirate Queen and the Primate of Akatosh, the Count sees at his powerlessness, all the while doing everything he can to honor his vow and protect Kavach and its people. Worship of the Dragon God. Lord Akatosh, lend us your might. Lord Akatosh, grant us your light. A popular prayer to Akatosh, the Dragon God. If there is a single divine who holds dominion over the Gold Coast, it has to be Akatosh, the Dragon God of Time. From the grand cathedral of Akatosh in Kavach and radiating outward, the word of Akatosh and his servants spreads the light and the truth of the Dragon God in all directions. Reputed to be the first and greatest of the 8 divines, and the first of the gods to form in the beginning place, Akatosh watches over the land and its people with a singular ferocity, never shirking his role as the god defender of the Empire. Even while the Empire lies broken and shattered, as the Primate of Kvatch likes to say at every opportunity, the Dragon God sees beyond the concerns of the day and contemplates the entire expanse of time. The current situation is merely a minor disturbance in the flow of events, and Akatosh has everything well in hand. Akatosh promotes 3 key qualities in his sphere: endurance, invincibility, and everlasting legitimacy. Perhaps that's why the Empire was so quick to embrace the Dragon God and his tenets. In the words of the Primate of Kavach, here are the ways which Akatosh embodies the 3 key qualities. Endurance. This quality represents Akatosh's ability and strength to continue or last, and is directly tied to his role as the Dragon God of Time. Akatosh endures, and so do the true believers who have accepted his words and devoted themselves to his teachings. Despite fatigue, regardless of stress or adverse conditions, Akatosh and his followers carry on. This is the Dragon God's lasting quality. Invincibility. Akatosh cannot be conquered, defeated, or subdued, and neither can those who believe in and honor the Dragon God. This is the Dragon God's indomitable quality. Everlasting legitimacy. This quality must be examined in all parts. It represents not only Akatosh's eternal aspect, but his reverence for law, reason, and the ruling principles of hereditary right. Nothing blessed and sanctioned by Akatosh can be considered spurious or unjustified. This is the Dragon God's continuing and lawful quality. Beyond these basic tenets, the Private Kavach and his priests preach the 5 commands of Akatosh to faithful and faithless alike. Serve and obey your emperor. Since its inception, the Empire and Akatosh worship have gone hand in hand, as this command clearly exemplifies. Study the covenants. These written agreements between Akatosh and his mortal followers, such as Alicia and her descendants, serve as tokens of their joined blood and pledged faith. All followers are urged to read and understand these eternal contracts. Worship the Eight, but Akatosh is not a jealous god. He expects his followers to pay tribute not just to himself, but to his fellow divines. Do your duty. Duty and responsibility figure prominently in the teachings of the rule-loving dragon god. Failure to fulfill your obligations is a sin in the eyes of Akatosh. Heed the commands of the saints and priests. Akatosh favors hierarchy and structure, so it comes as no surprise that he demands that his followers comply with the orders of the saints and the priests. The primate of Kavach often declares, "As Akatosh wills it, so it shall be," for the dragon god of time embodies yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and he embraces the rules that keep the world ordered and precise. By honoring Akatosh with devotion and worship, his followers endeavor to do the same. Prayer of the Resolute. Blessed be the name of Stendar, the God of mercy. He strengthens and unifies his resolutes through his wisdom and blessings. He calls us by day to train with sword and shield to strengthen our might, and by night to pray in his name to strengthen our souls. He takes pity upon us, his humble servants, and grants us unto mercy. His holy light of truth will cast out the forces of darkness and rain justice upon Daedric abominations. Glory shall be his forever. Thank you for joining me while I read these books. Until next time.